Hey everyone, so for the project on 10 Little Indians, I chose the story Do Not Go Gentle, and my theme was A Will to Live. The first quote says, "My wife and I didn't know Mr. Grief in person until our baby boy got his face stuck between his mattress and crib and suffocated himself blue." And for this quote, I chose the picture of a handshake because the quote talks about them not knowing Mr. Grief, but then they finally meet him, just as when you would meet someone, you would shake their hand. So in that way, it kind of symbolizes them meeting Mr. Grief. Mr. Grief was a billionaire. For this one, I chose just to put money. I thought that would be maybe the most obvious and maybe a little more of a unique way. And in the same way, it shows the will to live because they're doing anything to keep him alive, even though the hospital bills might be expensive. He died 3 times that day, Mr. Grief squeezing his lungs, that suffocating monster man, and brought our boy back to life 3 times. And here, and right in the next quote, actually, it speaks about, he says, we called him our little Jesus. And I chose the picture of when Jesus kind of rises from the grave, his tomb, and you can see the 3 crosses in the background. I thought that would be pretty symbolic, and that's the reason I chose that picture, because it kind of ties in with what they spoke about him. It was great to feel good about something because my wife and I were all the way grieving. And here I chose the glass half full and half empty, and it goes to show how sometimes if you have maybe a will to live, you want to maybe think of things more positively, and even in the face of their child, being nearly dead, we still see how they're happy or they're trying to be hopeful, and that kind of shows the same glass, but one is seen as half full and one as half empty. Yeah, put her kid on the 4th floor with our kids, and let's see how ugly she gets then. For this one, I chose a person who wasn't feeling well because the people in the bathroom spoke about someone who was just feeling bad. And, it goes to show how it's always maybe easy to compare what you're going through compared to somebody else. But I think it's always important to see that all the people in there had problems and that, they all needed help. And that's why I chose that picture. They were ashamed of themselves, I guess, for building a secret clubhouse of 2x4 boards and 10 penny nails of their pain. And when those 2 people were talking bad about the women in the bathroom, I chose some 2x4s to kind of see how maybe that wasn't very sturdy. And that picture, you can kind of see that thing isn't very strong. And we kind of see how those 2 people talking about the woman probably wasn't the best thing to do, and how that kind of mindset's not very strong and can really kind of hurt a will to live. I know I would have earthquake Los Angeles, Paris, and Rome and killed 1 million innocent people if it guaranteed my baby would rise back to his full life. This picture, I chose a picture of the globe because he mentioned a lot of places around the world, 2 in Europe and then 1 in North America, and I thought it would be pretty symbolic to show the Earth. And then we kind of see how a will to live because, he would do anything, even if it meant, those innocent people. Of course, I don't think he would really do that, but it kind of goes to show kind of this want and desire to live. It was called Toys in Babeland, and that was a cute name, so I'd figure I'd buy some teddy bears and a rattle and maybe some of those black and white toys the experts say are good for babies' eyes. For this one, I chose Toys R Us because I remember as a kid going to Toys R Us was always something I really enjoyed, and there was always something you could find, especially for somebody who was younger. And it kind of maybe even reminds me of something a parent would want to do for their newborn, to buy something for them, something they can enjoy. And, it kind of shows that he's expecting his child to live because otherwise he wouldn't have gone out of his way to buy or to try to buy something. We wanted our babies to live, and we were ready to try anything to help them live. And I chose the picture of somebody climbing a mountain because, climbing a mountain is not easy, and from the looks of it, that lady's pretty high up, so she had to really work at it. She was willing to do anything. She probably worked out and tried very hard to be able to make it to where she was. And it goes to show her want to be able to be great and successful, and the parents' want for the child to be okay. And the last slide, I think, says, our baby boy was going to live a long and good life. And as we usually see when it's our birthdays and there's a cake, usually there's a bunch of candles. And the more candles there are, usually the older you are. And in the end, the baby ends up living. And, the candles on the cake kind of shows that, they're going to have many more years ahead of them. And I think it ultimately shows a greater want to live, and how the baby had that, and the parents as well, and how that ultimately helped the baby get through. And that was my works cited page for the book and all the pictures I had. And that was my project for the 10 Little Indians. Thanks.